Good morning, team. It's Mr. Yates, lead instructor at PMA Hamburg here in Lexington, Kentucky, and I am so glad to welcome you guys back to the MatChat podcast, the podcast where we talk to you guys as parents about our life skills that we teach on the mat and how it relates to us. So, really awesome episode, number 4 that we're returning to you with. It's been a crazy battle for the past couple months just to kind of get you caught back up. We broke our foot on the mats and it kind of, shook up the things a little bit. We broke our foot, had a pretty severe break, had to get a plate put in there, but we've been back getting more and more mobile every single day, and now we are prepared to bring the podcast back full time. So make sure before we get started that you smash that like button if you haven't already. Hey, maybe if we can get 100 likes on this podcast, Miss Whitney might get me a PMA mug. Just a suggestion. Also, if you haven't already and you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you smash that notification bell. That way you never have to miss another podcast. So let's get started. Today's episode is all about self-discipline. That's our life skill right now. We're talking about self-discipline. Now, as adults, we basically know what self-discipline is. I mean, in the basic concept that we teach our kids on the mats is that it's really the things that we know we're supposed to do, and we do them without anybody having to remind us to do them. That's like the base that we really portray to the kids of what self-discipline is. That ability to do all the things that we know we need to, and in the bigger scheme of things, have to, without having to be told, reminded. You just get the stuff done, right? So we've been talking about that a lot. We talk about brushing our teeth, we talk about making our bed, things like that. But, and again, kind of like going back to that very first episode, talking about respect. We often demand a lot of things, but how much are we reciprocating back? Or in this case, how much are our children seeing these concepts in our daily lives? Do they witness you get up every single morning when you're getting ready, have your coffee, and then go brush your teeth? Before you go to bed, before they go to bed, do they hear you in the bathroom as well, brushing your teeth whenever it gets late at night? Also, are they seeing, you want your kid to make their bed every day. Are you making your bed every day? It's little things like this that we don't realize the huge impact that it has on our kids. Because often parents, I feel like, because again, I say these things because as a parent myself, I've been guilty of it. Again, I do have a 10-year-old and a 9-year-old or 8-year-old. I guess technically 9 and 7, but they both turn, 10 and 8 in just a couple of months. So they're pretty much there. But I've had kids for, about a decade now, and I've learned a whole lot and made a lot of mistakes. And in that time, one of the mistakes that I'm sure I've made several times along the way is expecting things of them and them not having the exact example of what I'm looking for on a day-to-day basis. So that means, I'm sure that we don't all like making our own bed, but are your kids seeing you do that? Because the big question really to them ends up being, if you're not doing it, why should I? And one of the things that you really want your kids to do is think critically. And thinking critically really requires one major thing: questioning everything. So whenever they see that you're demanding this or demanding that they need to have this kind of protocol, this kind of discipline, we have to, as parents, make sure that what we are demanding is exactly the example that we are setting. Because it's really hard for a kid to do something simply because they were told to. They're a blank slate. It's one thing we always forget, just like I think I mentioned at the previous podcast. We're all just like them. We all were babies at one point, right? And so we're all, even now as adults, still learning. So we have to remember how much a child is learning. And the biggest and vast majority of what a kid is going to mimic and replicate is going to start from childhood. And so if we want them to do something, we do have to set that example. Now, we're also talking about a couple of other aspects of self-discipline in our classes. This week in particular, we started talking about habits and mostly what we eat. So I really am a person that has been personally guilty of this many times throughout my life. Now, fortunately, I've never been, overweight or anything like that. Now, based on the BMI, sometimes when I've been lifting heavy, I've been literally marked as obese, but we don't go by BMI when you're actually in deep with fitness, right? But in truth, I've been one of those people that it's easy to go for the junk food. It's easy to grab a soda and, things like that. When I was younger, it was easy, a lot younger, it was easy to grab an energy drink versus having a black coffee like I'm sitting here with now. We look for these rushes and these waves of endorphins that come from these glimpses of instant satisfaction. And that's exactly what we're getting from things like a bad diet. So, I have several children that are on the heftier side, and then I have some children, I'm like, are you eating enough? And so it really comes down to what are we doing, again, in our lives to ensure that we are reciprocating the exact activity and mindset that we want from our kids. It's hard for a kid who has bad eating habits to change their eating habits if those eating habits are coming from mom and dad. It's hard for me to say you can't have soda if I'm drinking soda every day, right? It's hard for me to say, no, you can't have that candy or you can't have ice cream every night when they see me, before they go to bed, grab the tub out of the freezer every single night. It's really hard for your child to understand the lesson that you're trying to give them if you're not also living that lifestyle. And that's one of the major things that we talk about on the mats. One of the key aspects of self-discipline for a black belt or a martial artist in general is kind of that black belt ethos and black belt mindset. It's a mindset that all of our students we try to teach them that far before they ever get a black belt. The goal is to teach the lesson of self-discipline way before you even get close to getting a black belt, because of the responsibility and the responsibility that is required for the skills that you acquire at the level of black belt. You need to have self-discipline long before. And so, again, we're trying to teach kids to live in a certain way. And again, we're trying to portray a lifestyle, not we get a black belt and we're awesome at karate and things like that. It's a literal lifestyle that we are trying to embed. But again, it's one that you are learning throughout your entire journey. Even me at 30 years old, I'm still learning the path to black belt. Although I've been in the game for 12 years, it's still a endless long life journey, because we all have vices. We all have things that we cling to in order to fulfill certain desires, mostly in our psyches and our brain. That's why I talked about the endorphins, right? Endorphins are a very, very powerful chemical that our brain will release, and you can get it from so many sources, but it's the easiest sources that are accessible. They have the ease of access to them. Things like junk food, chocolate, candy, soda, alcohol, tobacco, drugs, all these other things. They release this instant gratification. But I challenge you to find that gratification elsewhere. Not only for yourself, but primarily, as this podcast is about, how we can better ourselves for our children, right? So if you change your habits, your children will change their habits. And why? Right back to what I talked about previously. They will have no reason to question you. If you don't give them a reason to question, then they will actually follow in your footsteps. But the only way to not give them a reason to question is to make sure that we are the example. So, the last part of that we're talking about in class, and we're talking about 3 aspects, because we always have 3 weeks of a MatChat in our classes. And on the 4th week, we do our stripe testing. So next week, we're actually going to be talking about anger management, which I'm probably going to get a little more in depth into anger management next week, during that week. So just to kind of give you a little bit of an idea, what we are going to be talking about is how we often react with emotion. And that is one of the flaws of the human mind, but it's also one of the easiest things to fall victim to, is to be angry. And so one of the things that self-discipline and mainly self-control really helps a student learn is to control those emotions. And again, we're not talking about suppression of emotion. We're talking about actual control of one's mind and the way they're thinking. Because if you control the way you think, you can control the way you feel. And if you don't want to feel bad, negative, pessimistic, discouraged, you have to change the way you think about things. And so we're trying to teach our children to think about things really in a step back, calm assessment. We want them to essentially have a anger management OODA loop, if you will, where they are able to assess what's going on, make a decision, act upon that decision, and then repeat that process so they can do it with a mindset that's not only clear, but open and allows them to make the right decision. Because if you're not thinking, that's when people get angry. But when you stop and think, generally, you're able to make a better choice than you would have in the other situation. Now, what I really wanted to talk about and maybe go a little bit in depth today on was another type of self-discipline that I especially, as a child of technology, and I'm sure you can start to see where I'm about to go with this, but one of the scariest things that I, as a, if you will, specialized physical education instructor, because what we do is we teach martial arts, but martial arts is a physical activity. And we're teaching our kids use their bodies, their minds, in a very, very physical way. So therefore, it is a physical education. So when I have 100, well over 100 students that I look at, and I'm always thinking, how can I make them stronger? How can I make them healthier? And as an instructor, I'm going to talk about this from two aspects. One, as a parent. Two, as an instructor. Let's start off with the parent. Let's go back. Let's start off with the instructor because I want to go more in depth with this as a parent. As an instructor, we are already supposed to be that model of what we want in our students. And that means that we should, now, again, everyone has their flaws. So what that means is we should be doing everything in our power to make sure our children and our students never see us succumb to those vices. And here's what I mean by that. When you step onto the floor, there is a certain expectation. And that expectation is that you are healthy, ready to go. But when I say those two things, what I really mean is this. Your students look at you as a superhero. Even your adult students, again, this is the instructor portion of it, even your adult students should look at you like a superhero. That's exactly what they should see when you step onto the floor. And when I've seen this time and time again, that when it's very difficult for an instructor to gain the true trust and support of their students if their students don't believe in who they are. And in my time of 12 years, I've seen a lot of these types of instructors that just stand at the front of the class, do a lot of little movement and things like that. And one of the things that, just to use myself as a personal example, and feel free to check out our content and see how we do on the floor, but I've always prided myself as being an on-the-mat instructor. Meaning that when I say it's time to do push-ups, my goal is to that at the end of every class, because one, we don't have a lot of time as instructors, right? One of my goals is at the end of every single class, I have done as many reps of every technique that I have taught, every exercise that we have ran through, as many times as one of my students. Think about that, right? We don't have a lot of time for training. If you teach 6 classes a day, you just did 6 classes yourself. And then, like in my academy, every Wednesday we get together and we have instructor training, which I call pit training. premier instructor training, right? So we get together, we go over the following week's curriculum, and we grind it out. As my instructors see as we go forward, I expect more and more intensity from them. More and more go get it, and we work harder and harder, just like our students are expected to. And so, as instructors, we have to make sure that we are as invested in our own training. And I think that's really in our own health and image. And that's where I'm really getting at this as instructors. We really have to take pride in ourselves, especially in what we teach. And so we must train. We must keep ourselves healthy to the best of our ability, but really ensure that we never show those weaknesses to our students. There's a saying, be human, be humble, but wear a mask to your students. And the only mask that you're wearing is the one that covers up your flaws. Because again, these are children that are being molded. They have, and students that are coming to you for something of greatness. We do all have our own problems. We have to push those to the side when we step onto those green mats. Because these kids also, some not, many of them do, have their own issues. So as instructors, we must really make sure that when they step onto those mats, it is truly a superhero or heroine that they see on those mats. They need to see Batman. They need to see Wonder Woman. We won't mention other superheroes because I don't like them. But with that being said, let's move on to what we need to do as parents, guys. So when looking at the social constructs that we have today, at which we use on a daily basis, we all don't realize that we have the most powerful device ever invented in the palm of our hands. Because in 2021, you actually can get away. And I'm not going to say get away. Because a person like me, some other instructors that I know, spent the entirety of their young lives working towards something. And it took me over a decade to reach the fruition of the career that I am in as a head martial arts instructor. As a professional instructor, it has taken a long time and a lot of education. However, I didn't do college. I didn't do other things like that. And in that time, one thing that I really knew, but still didn't use to its potential, was that I grew up in the world of technology. And every single day, we see a face down into a screen. And unfortunately, as I was getting to just a second ago, that little tiny device that you hold in the palm of your hand is literally the most powerful device that's ever been invented. Unfortunately, we don't use it for the right thing. You have the sum of human knowledge at your fingertips. But we often lack the self-discipline to use it for what its greatest purpose really could be. And one of the cool things is there are ways that we can do it. You can share your world, you can share your life, but how much time are you taking up on these devices? Even us, yes, as parents, how much time is being taken up by that device? A recent study, I don't remember the exact numbers, but a recent study showed that between the ages of 18 and 25, an insane, very alarming number of people spend the majority of their waking day engaged with some sort of device. Whether that be anything from a cell phone to a computer to a video game to a TV to anything. They even include, I think, smartwatches in the study. But that was on the low end. People were spending an average of 12 to 14 hours of their waking day on or engaged with some sort of electronic device. Mainly one that involved a screen. And that was on the low end. The high end was upwards of 16, sometimes 18 hours a day. So it's basically sleep and engage. Sleep and engage. But what we're lacking is a lot of engagement outside. The reason that it's dangerous for us as parents is we have these devices too. We all like to play. I know many adults that still play Candy Crush, Clash of Clans, all these games, watch constant YouTube. I watch constant YouTube. I watch a lot of podcasts and things like that, but I also watch a lot of dumb stuff too. So the device can be used for many great things. I will admit that I am engaged with a device oftentimes throughout my day. Again, I do listen to a lot of podcasts. Have several different people that I like to listen to for motivation, inspiration, knowledge, and education. And I often use it while actively doing something else. Maybe it's a workout. Maybe I'm working on a curriculum. Maybe I'm just doing something in my free time, or and I have something going on in the background. But even then, we're still honestly engaged all the time. And even when used in its proper purpose, we have a hard time unplugging, which reverts me right back to the problem of the example that we set for our children. Today's society has made it very easy to parent as little as necessary. I see this in the amount of activities that parents put their kids through, the amount of screens that are shoved in their face. And it seems as though we want to fill our children's lives with zero downtime. And I think I am one of the people of age that I am one of the last people that truly grew up where your parents said go outside. And it was my generation. I grew up on the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo. I remember when the Game Boy came out. I remember the very first smartphone. I remember all of that. And I remember when the internet became a thing in a person's home, as terrible as it was. I remember all this because it happened while I was growing up. I saw the entire evolution of it. And one of the most alarming things that I've seen is that it's not only taken over my generation, it's also taken over an older generation older than me, my mother's generation and those in between there. It's taken over completely our younger generation. And again, as parents, I watch parents constantly fill their children's schedules with stuff. And what's wild is I'll see their schedules full of stuff. Soccer, gymnastics, even use karate as an example. Soccer, gymnastics, karate, baseball, football, chess club, rocket club, mulch club, I don't know. But there's so many activities that we are throwing our kids into all the time. And I have literally watched kids walk onto my floor just because they're already worn out mentally. The kid can go physically a lot, but their brain can only handle so much. We act like we can't handle a lot. Oh, you're hitting me with too much information. How do you think a kid feels when they're having to constantly process this information? And then their only solace, and I see this again time and time again, is when a screen during those in between, when they get onto the van or they get back into the car to go to the next activity, or they're in between school on the bus, I constantly see a parent take their phone and hand it to them or give them their tablet. And it's something that extremely bugs me. But at the end of the day, it's actually on us as the parents to have more self-discipline, to not want to distract our children, because we're robbing them of their critical thinking. I don't know if you remember, but being bored was some of my most productive times as a young child. I used to be an avid artist, digital artist. I guess if you want to say media artist. So I started out, pencil, pen, and paper, and evolved into digital and all that. But I used to love doing and creating physical art. But the reason that I was so good at it was because my mom said, "Hey, sometimes it's okay to be bored. And then that's when my imagination started going. We don't allow our children to be bored anymore. We think there's something wrong with it. We think that this idle time is dangerous. We think that they're going to, it's like I think we worry about all the things that we did as kids and got into, and don't remember that some of the lessons that we learn about actually are what our parents are trying to teach us happens when we leave. I can remember growing up and my mom didn't know exactly what I was doing when I was at my friend's house. I had a couple of friends' parents who would literally let us as teenage boys just leave the house and go wherever we wanted to in the neighborhoods and around the areas and stuff like that. I can remember walking miles away from a friend's house. Now, we'll say that never happened whenever my friends came over to my house because my mom was one of those strict parents. It was like, no, I'm going to know where you are. But the difference is that she trusted me to have the self-discipline to know, well, walking around the neighborhood, going and exploring, creeks and little like tunnels and stuff like that. Not a bad, not wrong. And it would be okay because she knew I wouldn't make a decision that would put me into trouble. Never got in trouble going out and doing these things because I would be one of the people that would be like, we can't go there. Maybe we shouldn't do that, And it's because my mother actually did say, hey, this is what the world is. You don't just get to do things anytime you want to, when you want to. Just because you want something, you don't get it. Because I do see that a lot with the tablets and the phones. Is a kid whines and cries, and so we just shove it in their face. And it's a hard thing to recognize. Because, again, it's kind of like the candy and the Snickers bars and the ice cream and the soda. It's very easy to pick up and create a quick fix. But that's exactly what self-discipline is not. It's not a quick fix. It's a lifelong journey. But we can't handicap our kids and teach that lesson too late. You can't take away their freedom to make choice and just shove entertainment in their face. Shove distractions in their face. Because that's not only what these devices are, but again, it's also, I know we talked about a lot here, but it's also what these activities and this relentless scheduling is as well for your child. It's a giant distraction. Then as a parent, and again, every conversation that we have, I look introspectively because of flaws that I've also had as a father. Growing up and raising kids, we all make mistakes. There is no such thing as a perfect parent. So that's why as a professional instructor and full-time parent, I am trying to tell you these things from experience. Not through just, I saw this in a book. No. These are things that I say through experience. And we have to recognize when we are shoving so many distractions at our children. And be disciplined we have to be self-disciplined to recognize that. But more importantly, we need to be even more, we need to be even more self-disciplined to recognize when we're actually doing these things to distract ourselves. Parenting is one of the hardest responsibilities and hardest jobs that you will ever do. I know people, I have friends that say parenting is easy. Parenting is easy. It's not. Parenting is one of the hardest, if not the hardest thing you will ever do. Because if you're a good parent, you will always worry about messing it up. But that is what keeps you on your toes. Just like a karate instructor, you got to always be worried about whether or not your skill is at the level it needs to be, and that you are at the height that you need to be, the place that your instruction needs to be able to rock the class every single day, no matter who walks on that floor. As a parent, we face that exact same battle with our own children. We wonder and we pray and hope that we're instilling the right mindset, the right lessons. But in order to know that we're doing it, you have to recognize the flaws within yourself. I've got many that I'm still working on, as I know everyone else does too. But it's recognizing all of them, or being able to accept them when they're presented to us, and then learning from those flaws and trying to fix them. No one's saying do it overnight. So it's again, self-discipline is a lifelong journey. But the harder that you work at it, the more of it that you will have on a sustained basis. Yeah, you're going to have days where you may fall off the discipline train, but you just have to have the quick reflexes to jump right back on. But again, in conclusion, the only way to do that is to look introspectively. If we want self-discipline in our children's lives, we have to have it too. So at the end of the day, that means, yeah, you want your kid to brush their teeth and make their bed every day, make sure they see you do it every single day. You want your kid drinking water and not drinking soda all the time or this and that, make sure they see you down in water all day and they never see a soda in your hand. If you don't want them smoking cigarettes and doing this or doing that, don't expose. I'm not saying don't expose it to them. Don't expose it to them from you. You can teach lessons about these things, but when they see you doing it, the lesson holds really no weight because they're going to learn the most from you. So grow yourself. Join me in my quest to grow myself and all of our students, and grow yourself to become more self-disciplined, care about your health, care about your mind. Because imagine how many parents I've seen that go, oh, these devices, but are the same people that shove them in their face. So remember, be the example of yourself. Treat yourself with respect. Learn self-discipline for yourself. Then you can teach it to your kid. Then the lesson will stick. But unless you do it for you, then it won't ever hold the weight that it needs to for your child to be successful. I hope that helps you out a lot, guys. It definitely helped me. It always helps me to do these podcasts because I get to talk about things that I'm thinking about. And again, I look at these things and all these issues that we talk about with the life skills from an introspective and personal kind of view. Because I, again, have almost my daughter is almost 10 years old. So I'm a decade into being a parent. And it is scary. It is hard. And I work every single day, like so many of you, to try to get better and better and better. And that's all we can really do is work to get better and better and better. So, again, I'll see you on the mats. We'll have another chat next week. Make sure you like the video if you liked it. Make sure you comment below. And for sure, hit that notification bell if you're watching on YouTube so you don't miss any more of the podcast. We will be hitting you every Wednesday or Thursday. Okay? All these podcasts will become pre-recorded, and they will be released either Wednesday or Thursday every week. So you'll get a notification on our Facebook page. You'll get it, if you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, which I highly encourage you to do because it will be linked in the description below if you're watching on Facebook. So make sure you go over to the YouTube channel, drop a like on it, drop a subscription. That way you really get the notifications for it, and you can check out and keep on our Facebook for all the social media and crazy stuff that we do in school. But with that being said, I'm Mr. Yates, lead instructor at PMA Hamburg. This has been the MatChat number 4, Intro to Self-Discipline, and how we can set the example of how to live for our kids. Catch you next time. Don't forget, if we get 100 likes on this video, maybe it'll convince Miss Whitney that Mr. Yates is a podcast-worthy premier martial arts bug. Smash that like button.